it's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater, and welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. I had the pleasure, of those of you who have been listening to Her Success Story for a while, you've learned over time, I go to networking events. I connect with people. I find the value of building relationships one of the greatest golden gifts to building a business. And it's about building the relationships long term that always comes back to us as wins. So I joined a new networking group this year. It's called Ms. Esquire. And how did I hear about it? I know there's the comments that I often get. So how'd you pick this group and how did you hear about it? Well, shockingly, a couple of people I know said, hey, I went to this lunch. You love it. You should attend. So I did. Joined the group, and today's guest, Jo Stevens, was one of the speakers. And immediately I went up to her and I said, I would love to have you on Her Success Story. I love your story. I love the brand you're built. And then we started talking branding and my background in printing. And, you could just take a seat and just hang out. So we're going to take a seat and hang out. Jo Stevens began her journey starting with Law Firm Sites, which is her company, in 2006. Not in the corner office like we would often expect. And yet you might be shocked that she actually started her journey with the mop as a janitor. I'm not going to share Jo's whole story. I'm going to let Jo share her story. But let me just say, from 2006 to 2026, this woman has dedicated herself to learning and growing and developing, which is one of the things I greatly admire about her as a leader. She is not only that, but she's also a lovely person. So Jo, thanks for joining me here today on Her Success Story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Ivy. I'm excited to be here.
So it's not often that the first line of an introduction, I was like, okay, so our guest started as a janitor, is now a CEO.
Yeah. Yes.
So can you share a little bit of your early years and how you came to Law Firm Sites?
Of course, of course. So in, 2026, I was a single mom at that time. I had a 1-year-old, and I needed a job. I was going through a divorce and I needed to be able to support myself and my son kind of moving forward. And I didn't have a ton of job experience. I was young. I was 21 years old. And, the experience that I did have was I grew up cleaning, offices. My dad was a janitor and he owned a janitorial company and I would go with him. I would clean offices. So I knew how to clean, like that. I felt like was like my one, I know how to do this.
I have this
So
skill set.
yeah, yeah.
This is what I know. I have a
This
skill
is
set. I
this
can
is
do
what I
something
know.
with this.
Yep. And I'm like, and I would be grateful for any job. So I got on, Craigslist and kind of the local ads and was just
Yeah.
looking for anything that kind of related to that. And one ad really stood out to me, and that was to be a janitor for law firm sites for this company. And the neat thing about the story is this, I'm in Utah right now. My company is in Utah right now, and I was in Utah at the time, but I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. And when
We can hear that in the accent, just so you
oh,
know.
can you?
You might be in Utah, but when you and I were just casually chatting, it was like, she's originally not from Utah.
Okay, that actually makes me happy. I still have a little bit of my southern accent. Yeah, that makes
Absolutely.
that makes me so
A good
happy.
Southern girl at heart.
Well, so it was just kind of the crazy thing was, so I had grown up in Atlanta, Georgia, but here in Utah, when I was applying for this job, I had always actually kept my maiden name and most all of my email signatures and everything because it was memorable. My maiden name is Fish. So it was just one of those I had kept it in everything that I had. And when I reached out and applied for that job, the owner of the company emailed me back and said, is your maiden name Fish? And are your parents Mel and Linda Fish? And are you from Alpharetta, Georgia? And I just
Wow.
thought it was the craziest thing. And I was like, yes. And he was like, "You don't remember me because I'm 10 or 15 years older than you, but we grew up in the same church and your dad was my scoutmaster." And so it was one of those, like, it
It's
was
one of
really
those
neat.
small,
Yeah.
we just never know that. I
Yes.
always say life is such a small world. In New York City, it's a small world. In the United States, in the world, there's so many 6 degrees of separation that we don't realize that shows up. And it goes
Sure.
back to like keeping relationships going.
Sure. Yeah. So, it was just one of those meant to be kind of moments. So, I applied for the job. I got it, obviously. And then it just kind of springboarded from there. We already kind of had a deep connection. Our families knew each other. They went to church together. And during the day, I would actually clean his home, that he lived in. And then in the evenings, I would clean the offices of law firm sites. So I'm like that was kind of my first year and how I even kind of got the job.
And so how did you start learning? Okay. So there's so often we I mean, I know one of my kids started in the mailroom.
Sure.
I know I started on a receptionist desk.
Hmm.
There's so many times we start, doing the very bottom of the career
Sure.
rung and work
Sure.
our way up. But then for our younger listeners, it's how do you work your way up? How do you then
Yeah.
become the CEO of this company? What did you observe and what actions did you take to make that action happen?
I was definitely raised with really good work ethic. I watched my dad work 3 and 4 jobs at a time. I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and we didn't have a lot of money. My mom got sick very early on. She had a brain tumor when I was 5 years old, and
Sorry.
so there was a lot that was kind of happening. So I had to teach myself early on how to be a hard worker, how to take care of myself, how if I wanted something done, I was going to need to learn it and do it. That
Yeah.
was kind of ingrained in me very, very early. But, after the first year of kind of being the janitor and going above and beyond as much as I could at that position and at that job, right? I was always showing up early. I was always leaving later than I should. Anything that was asked of me, I made sure that I did it, to the extreme, more so than I should or better than I should. I was folding every single time I was there, I was folding every single toilet paper in every bathroom into a little triangle so that every time that went in there, it felt like it was fresh, it was new. And it's like, I know that these are such small things, but they are
But
the things
little
that I could
details
control.
add
Yes.
up.
Yes.
Little details add
And
up.
people
And
notice, you know what I'm
that
saying? Like people notice that and they notice, hey, did I have to do that every time and still be good at my job? No. But it was something that I know that they would notice that I was doing. So, after the first year of, kind of being the janitor and proving my worth and showing what I could do and that I was reliable and accountable, the owner came to me and just said, hey, I just lost my receptionist at law firm sites. How about I teach you how to answer phones and how to be the receptionist, and you'll get a bump in pay and you'll have a better work schedule, and you don't need to be the janitor anymore. And I remember that day very, very vividly of like I get to kind of step out of this lower role into something that more corporate and more feeling, like I have accomplished something and I have done something. And that really ignited something in me. Just even that
it's a
first
big
step to be the
deal.
receptionist really
It
ignited
is a
something in me
really
of
big deal when
I
that
can do something.
transition
Yep.
happens.
Yes.
When that transition happens, it's significant in so many ways. And we remember those moments. And I mean, I remember them for myself in different times that we can almost remember where we're standing, what we're doing. Like
Oh,
it's
100%.
ingrained.
100%. 100%. So that, and from that moment on, it was one of those I started to kind of find who I was and that I was in control of a lot of my future, a lot of my destiny, right? Like I didn't need to make excuses for myself or hey, this wasn't handed to me or hey, I was dealt a bad hand. I was like, hey, I can do this, this, and this. I can work really hard. I can teach myself on my off time. I can kind of go above and beyond to ensure that the people around me are happy with what I'm doing and providing. And I'm going to grow and I'm going to take a next step. Sure, I'm going to fail in between, but I got kind of addicted to that growth and that expansion in myself. And, it just kind of year over year, I continued to prove myself and I continued to learn more. I took in a lot of knowledge and a lot of information, everything that I could, right?
Get
I was
that.
watching YouTube videos on website design and web
Right.
development and, HR, best customer service practices. I was
Yes.
I was just trying to flood myself with as much information as I could. And then it just started to, it started to pay off. I went from being the receptionist to the project manager, and from a project manager to being the director of development, and director of development to the COO. So it steadily just kept growing. And again, there was definitely hard times that
Yeah.
existed, right, year over year. But what was consistent was myself and just not giving up on myself.
So share a little bit, 20 years later, share a little bit about law firm sites and the company it is today. I know you
Mhm.
took it, from a small company with a smaller staff and
Yes.
really, first of all, hats off to you. You went back, you got a degree in business, and when you took the helm, what was your vision?
So when I was offered the company, and it was actually 2020, it was height of COVID, and the previous owner, yeah,
said said,
the
okay, I've been in
I
business
know,
long enough. I don't need to deal with the whole COVID experience
right?
and in business. And
Right?
yeah, I had a lot of
Oh,
clients who were questioning at that time too.
yeah, yeah. Well, the funny thing is, sometimes I have like guilt over this. I probably shouldn't, but law firm sites was doing really well during COVID for the main fact that, attorneys, and that's who we mainly work with, they weren't going to trial. They needed to be found online more.
Right.
And they were like, hey, I have time to get my website done and I really need to be able to be found online. So our business actually did very well during COVID. And the previous owner had just gotten to a point of, I think I'm going to retire. I think I'm done. His kids were grown and done. And he came to me first and just said, hey, you have been with me since 2006. You have worked every single position at this company. We were very close at that time. And he just said, would you like to buy it before I put it out kind of to market? Is that something that you've been thinking about and that you would want to do?
Wow.
And during that time too that I was working at the company, I did get remarried. I got remarried in 2012. But I drove home to my husband that day. And I think that, I don't know how fast I went, but I just got home and I said, hey, hear me out. You're going to quit your job. And we are going to take every dime we have in savings, and I'm going to need you to sell your motorcycle, and we're going to take everything we have, and we're going to buy this company together, and we are going to make something absolutely incredible together. And he immediately was like, I'm in, let's do it. No questions asked,
And by the way, hats off to you for finding a man um, who sees his partner's vision
Yeah.
and steps into it with them.
Yeah. It's
Because
it's
it's a beautiful
it
thing and
is.
it doesn't always happen. And I know I have been supported from myself by my
Yeah,
husband in all the crazy, when you give up a solid seven-figure printing company in New York City and making a real living raising two kids in New York,
sure.
you say, I had this idea and I think I'm going to do this. And it takes somebody who's special who says, I
Oh,
believe in you,
yes.
let's go for it. And
Oh,
so
100%. 100, and
um,
I could not do it
calling it
without
out
them.
to
Yeah.
our guys out there.
Yes, yes, I could not 100% do it without him. He is the foundation to which I have like built this company on, and it's like, yes, I was here before and a part of it, and he and I got married later, but it is what it is because of his support and him being like, hey, let me hold your purse, you go, like, I am just here to support you, tell me what you need. And he does all of our sales because he has been in sales, his entire life.
Mhm.
So yes, 100% shout out to my husband. I could not and would not do it without him. So but yes, when we did buy the company, to answer your previous
Yeah.
question and kind of on growth and expansion. So when we bought the company in 2020, one of our biggest things was is that yes, we wanted to make it something bigger. We wanted to grow. We wanted to be more relatable and be more human beings. One of the main things that the previous owner did that I didn't love, but it wasn't my company, was, all of our marketing and everything was online, us specifically, all over email or sometimes on phone calls. But we didn't feel like real people to me. I
Okay.
wanted to have real human connection. So one of the big things that we implemented was we are going to focus on relationships over our revenue. So we wanted to build relationships with our clients,
It
with
is
future
the
clients.
scariest thing.
It really is. It
Um,
really is.
it
It's
is just
terrifying.
so free. It is
Yeah.
fear-based. It is scary. It's like, are you crazy? Do you know like the leverage online and this and that and the other things?
Yep.
And I have to tell you, Joe, hats off to you because um I have clients who do, in the legal space who do a ton of the online marketing. And I'm like, that's great. Now let's do relationship building with it. And you're going to see your brand explode. And they're like, that's a lot of time, Ivy. I was like, yes, I know. And it is so
Yep.
worth it.
So
So
worth it. So worth it. And it is. You're 100% right. It is terrifying.
yeah,
Terrifying.
it
But
is.
we went the first 2 years of owning this company, and we had no growth. We maintained. We had zero growth. And it had kind of been ingrained in me, from the previous owner on revenue and money and revenue and money. And you know what I mean? Like this is your focus. But when you focus so much on revenue, you start getting desperate. You start selling things that you shouldn't be selling, or and lowering
I
your
hear you.
prices, lowering your value. And then it's just in the long term is
It's a
like, is that the short
commodity
term?
versus it's
Yeah,
right. It's a like I'll always say, do you want to be selling in a commodity market or do you want to be selling in a boutique market? And
exactly.
I would rather position any company I owned to have that special sauce,
Yep.
that special attention, that that somebody like welcomes you into
Yep.
that boutique, introduces themselves, offers water, right? Come sit down. What do you think? Right? Has that conversation. And you get a customer for life versus a customer for a moment.
Exactly. 100%. And it's one of those, it's very difficult, I do feel like, and with business owners and when people are asking me, for advice and how did you do it and how did you grow and how did you make that switch to not thinking about revenue? And I'm like, you kind of have to be down in the lowest pits to and experience it and see that there's no growth. It's very difficult if you're growing or you're not wanting to get outside your comfort zone or take that risk to actually do it. You need to understand and know what those lowest lows are to be like, I need a massive change and I need to take that risk, and I shout it from the rooftops now. I'm like, guys, I promise if you hyper focus on your relationships with other people, with other businesses, we're forming partnerships with future
Huh?
clients, with just meeting as many people as you can, networking as much as you can, and just kind of getting your name out there, selling yourself, right? This is my company, I am selling myself. And I think I'm pretty great, but I need to get out there and be able to meet people and form those
Your brand is
relationships.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So the company today, what's your vision? What's next for you?
Oh goodness. So, I've got a pretty long list and we've got we've got a lot of goals. Right now we are mainly focused on my big overarching goal is we do want to um have the company, spread and be into other kind of industry-based services
Okay.
and stuff that we are
So
offering.
developing some new verticals as part of the
Correct.
future
Correct.
plan. Love that.
100%. Right now, the funny thing is that right now we actually are offering and do, websites and marketing for companies and things outside of law, mainly insurance and CPAs. I don't
Makes
advertise it a
perfect
lot. We get a lot of
sense.
referrals. Yes, we get a lot of referrals, and which warms my heart very much. So our kind of next steps would be able to expand our brand and our website and our company into different divisions for the different kind of areas that we're wanting to go towards. So, but that is more of a 5-year goal and not an immediate. Right now, we are just trying to kind of grow our relationships and expand as much as we can, form as many partnerships as we can with law associations, things like that, to be able to, just get our name out there as much as possible.
So let me ask you this. You've had quite the journey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, what has surprised you?
Um, what has surprised me? I would say myself. That is what has surprised me. I don't know
That's
if
a
that you
cool
get that
answer.
answer, if you
I
get that
That is
answer
a
a
very
lot.
cool answer. I like
Um,
it.
Yeah, definitely me. I have surprised myself. If you would have asked 21-year-old me that had my 1-year-old son and I didn't know what I was going to do, and, I had no goals in my life of owning a
Yeah.
business or being an entrepreneur. That was never a goal for me because I didn't think I could ever do that. Right? I just was like, how do I feed my son? How do I feed myself? How do I keep a roof over our head?
Right.
Those were my
It,
goals.
it was
So,
it's survival and base necessities.
it is. It is. And so I think just during this journey, I have completely surprised myself and I have just been like, holy cow, you can do this, right? Like who would have thought, Like, not me. Not me. I didn't have that kind of confidence back then. I just I've got to get from point A to point B. And so I definitely think that is my biggest surprise has been myself and the things that I can push myself to do and push myself outside my comfort zone. It has not been easy.
No,
I've tried to talk myself out of a lot of things a lot of time, like, hey, you don't need to go speak on stage. It's fine. No, we can expand in other ways. And pushing myself outside of that, my own personal comfort zone, has been, I think, the biggest thing that has surprised me and that I've been able to do.
I have to say, it's so funny you say that because I think you're spot on, and I know I feel that way very often. And I was talking to somebody yesterday, a managing partner of a law firm, and we were talking about, various areas, marketing, et cetera, and
Mhm,
like and speaking and doing this and that. And she goes, yeah, 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 yeah. And she goes, well, you do a ton of that. And I said, I have to tell you, I said, you know what? Before I take a step on stage, I very often feel like I'm going to throw up. She goes,
mhm.
get out. Like now? Like seriously? I'm
Yep.
like, yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm that
It's a real
person who's
thing.
like taking 3 deep breaths before I take that step
Hmm.
because it is so outside my comfort zone. Now, I danced on stages for my entire like my early years, through my so long, and I
Hmm.
can get out and dance, but opening my mouth is like, oh,
Yep. Yeah, a 100%. It does not come naturally for me. And a lot of people don't believe me, at this point when I'm like, listen, guys, it does not, I have had to train myself. I am naturally an introvert. I am not extroverted. I have had to train myself to be an extrovert, right? And to get up and to do it and to just push myself outside of that and get out of my own head. I have to tell
and
myself
I
all the
think that's
time.
it, is getting
Yeah,
out of our own
it
head
is. It is. I'm
and
like, hey, your
trusting
brain
our
lies
gut.
to you. Yeah. Like your
Yeah.
brain lies to you. I'm like, we can do this. And then it's, I'm just kind of trying to prove myself wrong when it gets to a certain point. So I definitely have become more comfortable with things. It gets easier, right? The more that
Yes,
you do it. But
it does.
I just like you, I get very nervous. I have to talk myself through it. I kind of have my little things that I kind of go through and I've mainly started kind of gaslighting myself into thinking I'm actually really excited about it and I'm great at it. And I'm like, you know what? You love this. Joe, you love this. Like that's I sound a little crazy, but I'm like, it does kind of, and I'm like, it does help me just kind of relax. Like, hey, I'm not nervous about this. I just try to like remove the words or the negative part in my head and just be
I
like,
hear you.
you love this. Let's go do it. We do this all the time. This is not
I
a
just
big
I
deal.
sometimes forget how much I love it. It's
Yeah,
just maybe a little bit.
I love it.
So Joe,
Exactly.
for our listeners today, one tip or piece of advice for the women leaders who are rising, the women business owners who we so often take on more and more. What's one piece of advice you would share forward from your 20-year journey?
I would say the biggest thing that has helped me is the pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. If you, more often than not, if you know it is something that is going to help further your personal growth or your business, but you're scared or you're nervous, you're uncomfortable, that means you should do it. That means that you should push forward and make yourself uncomfortable so that you can achieve that growth. I actually have kind of up in front of me here in my office, and I've always had it. And it was a quote that I saw years ago, and it's one that a lot of people use, but is there is no growth in the comfort zone.
There's not.
And there's none. There is zero. So I would say anytime that you are nervous or scared, but you know it's going to be good for you. Do you know, like ultimately it's like, hey, I know that this could be really good, but I'm really nervous. I don't think I should do it. I don't think I can do it. You should do it. No matter what, you should do it. 1000%. That is my biggest advice.
I love that. I love that. Well, Joe Stevens, thank you for joining us here today.
Yes. Thank you for
And
having me.
listeners, check Jo out, take a look at her LinkedIn, take a look at her website. This is a woman to follow who has accomplished an enormous amount and has shows up with a big heart, a lot of generosity and warmth. And that is something we can all learn as leaders.
Thank you,
So,
Ivy.
this is what I say as we close the show. You ready?
Ready? Let's do it.
Take a deep breath in. Identify one takeaway from the conversation Jo and I had today. One takeaway. Jot it down somewhere. Doesn't matter if it's your phone or your computer or a good old-fashioned piece of paper. It's what works for you. And here's the important piece. Make a decision on one action you're going to take from that takeaway. Every week, you show up with a decision and an action. What wins the race is the baby steps done consistently. So I invite you to continue to join us. Continue. If this episode helped you, share it forward to others you know. Write a review, hit 5 stars, anything that if you think it has value, it helps get noticed for others to share. And that's our biggest commitment. But obviously, keep me posted on your takeaways and your actions. And we will see you next time, next week, with more great content and fabulous guests like Jo Stevens.